Would you like to overcome low self-esteem and build your confidence once and for all? Are you tired of the anxiety, depression, the fear of rejection, the fear of being around new people, the awkwardness in social situations or on the job, the people pleasing, the toxic relationships, the poor body image that makes you hate what you see when you look in the mirror? If you are, this could be one of the most important videos of your life. Before I jump into today's training, I want to let you know a little bit more about who I am. Not to show off, but I do think it's important that you know who you're talking to. My name is Jennifer Sarpong, and I'm a speaker, coach, and author of the book Get R.E.A.L about low self-esteem and founder of helpmyselfesteem.com, also a member of the National Association for Self-Esteem. But most of all, I'm a normal person just like you. I wasn't always a self-esteem or confidence expert, and I wasn't always super confident. This video is going to be so important to you because in this video, I'm going to share some secrets to overcoming confidence and building your self-esteem once and for all. I'm going to answer questions such as, what is low self-esteem? You'll learn what it is and what the most common symptoms of low self-esteem are and how low self-esteem affects every area of your life. What causes low self-esteem in the first place? I bet you're curious. You're about to find out why. And you're going to learn the 3 biggest mistakes that women with low self-esteem make that keep their lives, careers, and relationships painfully stuck. And lastly, I'm going to give you a solution to help you start building your confidence today, right from the comfort of your own home. Here's something important you need to know. There is nothing wrong with you. Low self-esteem is probably the hidden monster that's been holding you back from everything you want in your life. And you also need to know that you are not alone. What you feel is more common than you think. Many women, no matter what their age, at some point in their life have silently struggled with one or all of the following symptoms of low self-esteem. Emotional roller coaster rides between the extremes of overwhelming anxiety, fear, worry, anger, and depression. Crippling social fear and awkwardness that keeps them from exploring new social groups. Body image issues that zap your confidence and make you feel hideous when you look in the mirror. Or feeling inadequate, constantly comparing yourself to other people. And there's also the fear of rejection, that need to please that leads to painful relationships. And the extreme fear of failure that keep you stuck in life instead of making progress in your career or in other areas. I wasn't always the confident self-esteem expert and author you see here today. It was several years ago that I was in my college dorm room. It was a beautiful sunny day. I was in my typical blue jeans, t-shirt, and black jacket. None of my roommates were in our apartment, and I was all alone. Even though I was fully dressed and ready to go to class, I didn't make it to my morning classes or any other classes that day. Instead of going outside, I locked myself in my room so no one could barge in, and I sat inside of my closet and shut myself in. And as soon as the closet doors closed, I started crying uncontrollably. I was in a deep depression. I had tried really hard to pull myself together. But that day, I still felt like I was falling apart. Painful memories and emotions that I thought I had put away forever all came rushing back to my mind at once. I didn't know what to do with them or how to get rid of them. I thought things could never get worse, and I knew I had to make a change deep down inside. Just like you know you desire a change, because like me, You deserve a life where you feel confident and where you no longer feel like you're not enough in meeting the challenges of daily life. Yes, I knew something had to change, but one more thing had to happen to push me over the edge. I curled up for hours in my closet, crying buckets of tears, having a really low, but at least private moment. What I later came to know as a self-esteem crash. And then the worst thing happened. Suddenly, I heard the sound of voices and then a terrifying creaking sound of my bedroom door opening. Who is that? I thought. Oh no, oh no. As my closet doors swung open, I instantly looked up and saw 5 confused faces staring down at me, a curled up mess on the closet floor. Jennifer, are you okay? What are you doing? My friends asked. And I made a promise to myself at that very moment to do whatever it took to figure out why I had been on such a strong emotional roller coaster. I was so embarrassed to have my friends find me like that. And on the outside, I looked fine. I was a leader. I was popular. I had friends. But on the inside, I was always on pins and needles. I would beat myself up if I accidentally did or said something that I thought was wrong, or if I felt like someone I deeply cared about rejected me in some way. And I could instantly spiral down into the most devastating embarrassment, self-hatred, and depression. I would think things like, what's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Why can't I just be normal and happy like everyone else? The only thing I knew was that I just felt completely wrong and miserable. Like no matter how hard I tried, no matter how hard I worked, I couldn't measure up. And the pressure of it all was getting to me. I started a journey that day to find out what was going on with me and how to change it. And this was the question I had, which is probably the question you have right now as you're watching this. How do you go from hating yourself to loving yourself? I wanted answers. I researched everything I could find. I spent hours looking through psychology books and confusing medical websites that talked about my symptoms. I read the Bible and prayed to God looking for spiritual answers. I just needed change. And through it all, I discovered that low self-esteem was my real issue. Whew, I wasn't crazy. And you're not either. What a relief. Low self-esteem, actually severe low self-esteem, was at the root of my constant fear, avoidance of new social groups, hating my body, my on and off depression, and my stormy anger. Once I discovered self-esteem was what I was dealing with, I had more questions like, what is self-esteem exactly? What is low self-esteem? And how do you get better self-esteem? When I finally found those answers, I realized that women all over the world were feeling the same thing that I used to, and that there was a real need to share this information in a simple, practical, and easy to understand way. The rest is history, and Help My Self-Esteem was born. Through my years of research, I uncovered a simple 4-step formula for overcoming low self-esteem. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to be sharing those 4 steps with you so you can build strong self-esteem and learn how to be confident. I recognized that I wasn't the only one with this problem. When I started Help My Self-Esteem and started to share my findings and my answers and my results, I got responses from all over the world and found out that this is more common than you think it is. Low self-esteem is a silent epidemic all over the world that is causing women around the globe to make bad relationship decisions or hate themselves when they look in the mirror or not feel confident in social settings. Here's what one of my readers had to say. about how low self-esteem was affecting her life. I am overweight and allow that to influence how I communicate with people. I am isolated most of the time in order to avoid the uncomfortable feeling of potential rejection. I don't do so well in social groups because I am constantly criticizing the way I act, think, respond, and appear. I feel awkward when it comes to meeting new people, dating, interviewing for a job, everything. Please help. Do you see yourself in any of what she just said? If you do, you're in for a treat because you're about to learn the 4 steps to build your self-esteem and confidence once and for all. It's what I call the Get R.E.A.L formula. The R stands for realizing the reality of low self-esteem. The E stands for engaging yourself in positive thinking. A is to accept the fact that you're not perfect. No one is. And L is to learn to love yourself unconditionally. In the next few minutes, I'm going to zoom in on the first and most important step, which is realizing the reality of low self-esteem. Now, obviously, I can't get through this whole system in the short time we have, but I'm going to give you as much as I can. And I'm going to share a resource I have for you that will help train you in each of these steps. The first step to overcoming low self-esteem is to be able to answer the question, what is it? What are the symptoms? How do you get it? And how does it cause you to react differently than other people who don't have low self-esteem? This is what we call realizing the reality. So let's go over these answers. What is self-esteem? Self-esteem is a realistic and positive appreciation of yourself. It's self-respect that's honest because it includes understanding and acceptance of your weaknesses, celebration of your strengths, and a genuine belief that you are equal to other people in the world. What is low self-esteem? Low self-esteem means feeling unlovable, unworthy, or inadequate at your core. Let's go over 3 of the most common symptoms of low self-esteem and how it affects every area of your life. When we have low self-esteem, anxiety and fear constantly follow us for several reasons. First, we are afraid of doing or saying the wrong thing, which will cause us to be ashamed, humiliated, embarrassed, or hurt. We are afraid of doing something that's out of place or awkward, so we're constantly watching other people and comparing ourselves to them. But ask yourself, why is awkward so bad? Well, it's horrible when you have low self-esteem because when we have low self-esteem, we're afraid that we're going to reveal our deep flaws and instantly cause other people to reject us, shut us out, tease us, or respond in a way that's going to make a lot more trouble for us emotionally. When we have low self-esteem, we're afraid of the pressures of success. So we tend to avoid things that are outside of our comfort zone. We think success will be too much to manage if we get it. So instead, we decide that it's safer to stay where we are, even if we're unhappy with where we are. And we're also afraid of failing to live up to the expectations of other people. We avoid having responsibility or expectations from others because we believe we are truly unqualified or insufficient to handle them. We avoid having responsibility or expectations from others because we believe we are truly unqualified and insufficient to handle them. The next major symptom is that we take tormenting rides on the 4 emotional roller coasters of depression, anxiety and fear, anger, and shame. Many women who have low self-esteem swing back and forth between these painful emotions most of the time. And the majority of our rides of pain are completely unnecessary, which is the sad part. We feel responsibility for things that may not be our fault, or often take on more blame than we should. This was a huge problem for me. Also, We may wrongly think that others are trying to hurt us or reject us, and we may take the actions of other people too personally. Often, because of our own self-hatred, we react angrily toward others. Or we may react inwardly with self-abuse, such as addictions and cutting, and isolate ourselves from the care and attention of others, even though we really desperately want it. Because we feel rejected, guilty, sad, or alone, we can start to flounder in our emotions, which left unchecked can lead to overwhelming depression. The third symptom is that we go through self-esteem crashes. The definition of a crash is a very fast collapse, failure, and loss of emotional control. And these self-esteem crashes can last for a few minutes or a few weeks. If these emotional meltdowns continue, they may turn into an anger or a type of long-lasting, simmering rage that causes us to become defensive and lash out at others. And once the crash has ended and we stabilize again in our emotions, we may look back on our behavior and feel so much regret, may be depressed, or even become more embarrassed later on. So what causes low self-esteem? Why do we develop it in the first place? Well, how you feel today about yourself partly has to do with the messages that you received as a child from people in your family. And the way you interpreted those messages when you were a child helped you either feel good or bad about yourself. Psychologists have proven that personality usually develops between the ages of 0 and 5. And by age 6, it's basically set. So our personalities, the way we think, the way we approach the world, a lot of that, in fact, the majority of that, is developed in childhood. And when you grow up in a home or an environment where you have an uneven or unfair amount of negative feedback, such as environment of abuse or instability or excessive criticism by an authority figure such as a parent or older sibling, or if you grew up feeling unsupported in some way. As a child, you began to take on the message that something is wrong with me and the problem is me. Our picture of ourselves begins to form as soon as we're born. And based on how we're treated and the words that are spoken to us, our picture of ourselves develops. So if a child is supported and cheered on and encouraged, most likely they're going to develop healthy self-esteem as adults. However, if she is constantly yelled at, "What's wrong with you?" criticized, that's not good enough. Ridiculed, "You're stupid, you're fat, you're ugly," or told she can't do things right. "Why can't you ever do anything right?" She begins to question her abilities and her value. She begins to feel inadequate. And if her feelings are ignored, she feels insignificant, ashamed, unworthy, and unimportant. And this was my story. And many of the women who have low self-esteem have a very similar story. I had a really rough childhood, and there was a lot of bad blood between my parents. I grew up seeing physical fights between them, and I switched states every 2 weeks because my parents had joint custody of me. Growing up, I didn't know how to process all the chaos that was going on, and so I blamed myself for the instability, and I focused on trying to be good enough. And so, growing up, I didn't know how to process all the chaos that was going on, and so I blamed myself for the instability around me, and I focused on trying to be good so I wouldn't make things worse for them, and it didn't work. I got discouraging remarks, ridicule, picking, criticism from both sides of my family. And that set the stage for me to try to prove those words wrong for most of my life. I became an overachiever and excelled at sports and school and anything I could to try to get some emotional approval or support. But I still experienced so many situations that told me I wasn't good enough. Trying harder never fixed how I felt inside. And I didn't realize it then, but deep inside, I had come to the conclusion that I was flawed beyond repair and I was unlovable. So you can see how growing up in a chaotic environment like that, it was easy to develop low self-esteem in that situation. You may have a similar situation, or you may have something altogether different. And regardless of how you grew up, you should know that you are not the cause of low self-esteem. It's not your fault. It most likely developed in childhood, in circumstances that were totally beyond your control. Number 2, you don't deserve low self-esteem. No one does. You also need to know that low self-esteem is a legitimate and seriously dysfunctional mental pattern of thinking. But it can be changed. But it's important you know that low self-esteem is serious because so many women who have it beat themselves up all the time. They think, why can't I just get over it? I used to say to myself all the time, Jennifer, why can't you just be normal? Why can't you just get over this? Why are you acting this way? I treated it like it was something I was just supposed to kick to the curb and just be fine. But that's not how you actually get over low self-esteem. It is a serious, dysfunctional mental pattern that was probably established in your childhood. So you must acknowledge and work through your past, sorting through your memories and experiences until you can understand how your low self-esteem first developed. Because if you can understand what happened that caused it and recognize what it did to your personality, what it did to your thinking, what it did to the way you see yourself, that's when you realize the reality of low self-esteem, and that's when it can begin to change. What's most important is that you understand that the negative messages you have running through your head all the time do not reflect your true worth. And now, as a young adult or a full-grown adult, you have the ability to carefully look at these messages and decide which ones are helping you create healthy self-esteem and which ones are not. You have the power to let go of any messages that aren't serving you well. Now, let's talk about the 3 biggest mistakes that women with low self-esteem make that keep their lives, careers, and relationships painfully stuck. The first is trying to avoid being uncomfortable. When you have low self-esteem, the biggest thing you can do is begin to test your boundaries and explore more. But remember, when we have low self-esteem, the greatest barrier we face a lot of the time is fear and anxiety. And so women who are trying to build their self-esteem, who are trying to gain confidence, often stay in this little box of comfortableness because they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of messing up or making a mistake. But avoiding the feeling of being uncomfortable is the worst thing you can do with low self-esteem, because until you break out of that box, until you move beyond your comfort zone, you won't begin to have experiences that can show you your value, that can show you you can do it. The second mistake that women with low self-esteem often make is confusing their feelings with fact. Here is the truth, and psychologists have proven this. People do not see you the way you see yourself. So just because you actually feel a certain way about yourself does not automatically mean that you are that, and it doesn't automatically mean that other people see you as that. But women with low self-esteem, because their feelings of self-hatred and low self-worth are so strong, they automatically assume, I feel this way so strongly, it must be truth. And in actuality, it's probably not. And the third mistake that women with low self-esteem make is not taking steps to learn how to turn their low self-esteem around. Remember, low self-esteem is a thinking pattern that was ingrained in your early childhood years. It doesn't just go away without intentional effort. When we give in to low self-esteem, we sabotage our own lives by avoiding the exact experiences we need to grow. Certain skills are only learned by doing. For example, none of us as a baby ever learned how to walk simply by watching other people walk. At some point, we had to get up and try for ourselves. And even when we fell, we had to get back up again. Low self-esteem often keeps us from getting back up when we give into it. It keeps us from learning the skills we need to progress and grow mentally, emotionally, and socially. For example, we want to learn people skills, but we avoid meeting new people because of fear of rejection. Or we want to accomplish something great, but we avoid really trying it because we are afraid we might fail and look stupid. What ends up happening is we stay stuck, stagnant, and comfortable in our lives. We decide the best way to protect ourselves from emotional disaster and self-esteem crashes is to stay in the same routine. But we're locking ourselves in our own prison. You're locking yourself in your own prison when you do that. If you give in to low self-esteem, you will settle for much less than you are capable of, and you will never reach your full potential. Instead of allowing fear to tell you what to do every day by avoiding new situations, put yourself in new situations so you can grow. Now, I know that's easier said than done. So it's like, Jennifer, great. I know what low self-esteem is. You told me. What do I do to start to change this practically? How can you start building your confidence today? Well, got the answer for you. It's Confident Me Online Self-Esteem Trainer. Confident Me Online Self-Esteem Trainer is the first training program in the world that helps real-world women practically learn how to love themselves and build their confidence. And you, by watching this video, by sticking to the end, get a special gift from me. So I'd like you to go to realselfesteem.com/join to learn more. This program is going to walk you through, literally step by step, week by week, everything you need to truly overcome low self-esteem and build confidence once and for all. And I have a special gift just for you. Go to realselfesteem.com/join.